back to the Dysfunctional Podcast. Guys, I'm home. I'm back in my room. As soon as I got home, I was like looking at everything in my room and I was like, I feel like I need to get rid of everything. So it does look a little bit different. But yeah. So today we're going to be talking about something I've wanted to talk about for a while. This is a really scary thing for me because I've only talked about like the full thing of this to like a couple close friends and like my therapist, and like that's it. Um so this is really a scary thing for me to talk about, but I figured this would be the perfect time to do this because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I kind of want to put a disclaimer on this before I start talking about what I'm going to be talking about, because I feel like I should. I feel like oftentimes the discussion around mental health has kind of become a trend, and that's not my intention with this at all. I'm doing this because I want to help someone who may be feeling similarly to how I did, and I'm not doing this for pity. I don't want pity. I'm doing this because I feel like personal experiences and mental health are just not talked about as much as they should be. And by doing this, I'm hoping that I can help someone feel a little less alone. So today I'm kind of just going to be talking about my mental health journey and what got me to where I am today. So I guess we're just going to get right into it. Growing up, I feel like I was a pretty introverted kid, but I would definitely come out of my shell once you got to know me. I feel like I'm still kind of like this. I'm definitely more outgoing than I used to be, but yeah, just kind of super introverted until you got to know me. Not a super talkative kid, I would say, unless I was comfortable around you. You know, I had a great childhood. I was a super happy kid, and yeah, not too many complaints about that. You know, the only thing I remember kind of struggling with from a young age was just like kind of just feeling out of place a little bit. But I really remember starting to really struggle with my self-worth in like middle school. You know, I've never been the most confident person, but I would say that that's kind of when the negative self-talk became pretty noticeable. And I feel like at that age it's so normal to struggle with your self-worth just because it's such an awkward like stage in life. I think to a certain extent I just really struggled with comparison at this time and did not like what I saw in the mirror. If anything, I would like avoid it every morning if I could. And during this time I became close friends with someone, and as we got closer we kind of started opening up to each other about our struggles, and I felt like we could relate to each other in a lot of ways. And this is the first time I've felt truly understood and seen by someone, just because I feel like we were kind of going through similar things to some extent. This friendship was super beneficial for me in a lot of ways. It helped me feel a lot less alone, and I just felt like I could come to this person, you know, anytime I was feeling like down about myself and just say what was on my mind and be fully honest. So now we're gonna jump to high school. My insecurities got even worse, I feel like. And I feel like this is a super normal thing, you know, high schoolers can be, in middle school too, can even be like so cruel at times. I remember like sophomore year of high school just being like so like insecure, and someone fully like called me ugly and I was like, okay. Like I already I already felt that about myself. So when people would say stuff like that to me, it would just already confirm how I was feeling. I think that sometimes people don't understand the impact that their words can have on people. And in high school, the way I compared myself to people just got worse. I remember really starting to struggle with social anxiety once I got to high school and just kind of feeling like, everything that I said was wrong or weird, or, people were judging me for something that I said. When in reality, they probably thought it was completely normal. But I just remember like struggling so much with that to a point where I just wouldn't really talk. And I think it was sophomore year. Yeah, during sophomore year, I had a falling out with my friend who I had been super open with about my struggles. And this was the person, pretty much like the only person I fully opened up to and just told everything to. And, this person helped me so much with what I was struggling with. So when I didn't have that, obviously it affected me so much because this was the person that I was so dependent on for like getting through my struggles and talking about my struggles. So obviously I felt super alone during this time, and I just felt like the only person that truly understood me wasn't in my life anymore. And this is probably one of the hardest things that I've been through in my life so far, looking back. Fortunately, after this happened, I started getting close with some new people, so that really helped me. But I felt like I would always surround myself with people to distract myself from how I was really feeling, because when I was alone, I just couldn't escape my thoughts. So I wasn't really getting over the situation, and when I wasn't with my friends, I was probably rotting in bed. This is when my mom kind of started to notice a change in my behavior, and she suggested I try going to therapy, which I agreed. And when I first started going to therapy, it wasn't super beneficial to me because honestly, I was just, I've always kind of struggled to be vulnerable and talk about how I feel. So when I would go to therapy, I would kind of just like lie to my therapist, which obviously isn't good because, one, that's not actually going to help you. And two, therapy a lot of times is not cheap. So, yeah. What really changed something for me was going to Young Life Camp. Was it summer after my junior year? Yeah. I started kind of realizing how many things I hadn't worked through and how much I was avoiding and wasn't coping with at all. And this was just a moment for me when I was like, oh, like I am really struggling and I need to like figure something out. Young Life Camp was seriously one of the best weeks of my life. And this was the time where I accepted Jesus into my life, and this really changed a lot for me. I definitely felt a lot less alone. But there's this thing called a camp high. If you don't know what a camp high is, or the camp high, it's when you go to like a religious camp and you just feel like so on fire for Jesus, and but once you go home, like the camp high kind of just like wears off, and I feel like that definitely happened for me. After camp, I went back to my negative mindset, and when senior year came, this is when I really started to hit rock bottom. Stuff from my past was affecting me because I hadn't fully worked through it. I missed having that friend that I could talk to, and I was still heavily mourning that friendship in a way. And senior year was probably the most alone I've ever felt in my entire life. Even though I had so many people around me and so many people that cared, my self-worth was probably the worst it had ever been during this time. I just felt like I seriously had absolutely nothing going for me. You know, some people were good at sports, some people were super smart, some people were super extroverted and funny. And I just felt like everyone had something that they were good at and I didn't. And while I was going through all this and feeling these feelings about myself, I wasn't really telling anyone. I was always someone who I felt like people viewed as like this super happy person. So during this time, I would I would put on this super happy face at school or in public in general, when in reality, I had never felt so low in my entire life. I felt like everyone kind of just expected me to be this happy person, so I would just try and be that for other people. The best way I can describe it is I seriously felt like I was playing a character and I had this mask on. And when you're being something that you're not, it can get really exhausting. So I was seriously so drained, and this is when I hit rock bottom, like really. And I just felt like there wasn't a place for me. This is when I started feeling like I just didn't want to be here anymore. I felt so hopeless and just worthless and drained, and like the way I was feeling would never go away, and that I would always feel this way. This is when suicidal thoughts just kind of became the normal for me. I don't think a day went by during this time where I didn't think about what it would be like to just not be here anymore. And I felt so much guilt for feeling this way because in my mind, I was just like, there's literally no reason why I should be feeling like this. I am surrounded by so much love. I have the best friends. I have the best family. You know, like so many people around me that love me. So I just, I felt so much guilt. But at the same time, when you're in a place like that, it can be really hard to see like that there are so many people that care and so many people that want to help you. It's also so interesting to me because during this time I seriously felt like no one cared, but so many people cared. I just wasn't I don't think anyone really had any idea because I was putting on this face and acting like everything was fine. I think that it's just so crazy how when you're struggling so much, seriously, you can convince yourself of so many things, even if it's not a logical thing to think. I felt like every day was the same. I would go to school and I would pretend like everything was fine, and then I would go home and I would lay in bed. And yeah, just couldn't really escape the dark place that I was in. And when you have all of these tiny problems that you're not addressing, those tiny problems can build up and create this bigger problem. And if you're still not talking about it, eventually it's going to come out. Eventually I became pretty desperate and started opening up in therapy, and that really helped me. And I started to realize that there was a deeper root to my problems that I wasn't really addressing. I really started spiraling sophomore year because I was fully dependent on this one person for my happiness, and I was fully dependent on how other people viewed me for my own happiness. So if one person or a couple people said something negative about me, that really affected me. That really affected me because I did not love myself, so I relied on other people's opinions. But although I was going to therapy, I still kind of felt like something was missing. During the spring, I started thinking about Young Life Camp again and how happy that made me feel. And I started really trying to build my relationship with God. And this is what truly turned my life around. I felt like I had a purpose and I didn't feel as scared about the future because I knew that God had a plan for me, and I felt like there was a value to my life. It sounds so crazy to say because, there was that time in my life where I truly felt like I didn't add anything to the world, or there was no value to my existence. And when I began getting closer and closer to God, my self-worth got better and I started to like myself again. And this doesn't mean that now that I, have a relationship with God that I still don't have hard days. Like, no, that's not true. But now when I am having hard days, I have something to fall back on. So that's kind of my story, I guess. So now I just kind of want to say some things to anyone who may be in a dark place or in a similar place to where I was in. I just want to tell you that you are never alone, and even when I seriously know what it feels like, even when it feels like you're alone in your thoughts, I can promise you that you're not, and there's so many people who would love to help you. I think that opening up and being vulnerable, it's terrifying, but it's truly one of the best things that you can do for yourself. I would say if you're struggling, find some hobbies or just do things that make you happy. And I think that healthy distractions are good just as long as you're not letting those things fully distract you from how you're actually feeling. And I also want to say that everything happens for a reason. Even if it sounds so messed up to say, I look back on, senior year, that was a super dark time in my life. And even just like almost like all of high school, because I really struggled during that time. And I'm so grateful that I went through those things because I learned so much from those experiences. If I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't have learned to not be so dependent on other people for certain things. I truly feel like for me, I had to hit rock bottom in order to realize what I was missing in my life. I can promise you that there's light at the end of the tunnel, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. When you're out of it, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh, so that's why that happened to me. The next thing I want to say is that you are meant to be here. Seriously, life is such a gift, and I'm so incredibly glad that I can see that now. We only get to be here for a certain amount of time, and just the fact that you're here and you're existing during this time is such a miracle. I would say if you are scared to talk to other people about how you feel, journal, write down how you feel. That was super beneficial to me during that time and still is beneficial. I journal almost every single day. If you're religious, pray, talk to God about how you're feeling, and read your Bible. I seriously can't think of a time where I prayed about it or I read my Bible when I was struggling. and I didn't feel better after. Almost every single time I do that, I feel better after, or I feel some sort of relief. So that's all I really have to talk about today. Um, I hope that this helped you in some way, and yeah, you are so, so loved, and you're such a gift to this world, and life is such a gift, and I love you. And if you ever need someone to talk to, DM me on Instagram, send me a text, call me, whatever. I don't care. Even if we're not that close, I'm here for you. And yeah, I love you, and thank you for listening.